Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond the Home Study podcast. This is where we have conversations with foster and adoptive parents just about life and all that we do. So, Laura Rose and I are here today with a new friend. So, Laura, I will let you introduce her to us.
Hey guys, yeah, welcome back to another episode. We have a very special guest with us today. This is Sara, and Sara this is a mouthful, so stick with me, guys. She is the National Director of Family Recruitment and Retention of a very large child welfare agency. So we're really excited to hear from her professionally, but then personally, she is not only is she an adoptee herself, but she's also an adoptive parent of 13. And yes, you heard me right. 13. And so, Sara, thank you so much for being with us. And I am so excited to hear your story.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you.
Can you start us out with just telling us, one, where are you in the world? Like what area are you in?
I tell people I'm kind of in the Tampa Bay area of Florida,
Okay,
but I'm
Florida.
from Michigan originally, but I've been here almost 9 years, so I guess I'm starting to be a Floridian, and I love it down here.
So, did you start your journey to Florida as like a snowbird? Like, were you going part of the year just to escape the cold of Michigan, or did you make the full move?
Honestly made the full move. I was actually part of a very intensive recruitment program for teens waiting in foster care. It was very successful, and we had hoped to come to Florida and replicate it. Um, Honestly, probably about 6 months after we were here, the program was sadly defunded.
Oh,
So that was, and so it happens in social services, right? So I was super sad. I went through a period of grieving, but really it was coming down here and helping to do the good work down here that we were doing up in Michigan. So yeah,
well, the weather, I'm
that
So
did
sure,
not
is
tell
pan
us.
out.
better.
Oh, yeah.
It
Right.
is. You are not lying. It's great.
So tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about the work that you do. Kind of give us the really Cliff Notes version of what you do.
sure. So my role right now is more in a position of engaging with, encouraging, teaching, supporting, and helping all the recruiters for this agency. We have probably about 14 branches that have domestic foster care programs. That's sort of my primary focus right now. So I work with a lot of those recruiters and staff and licensors, basically, again, to train, to teach, to all of the things. I do a lot of data. I'm part of a quality team, so I'm in data a lot of the days and following and tracking families to make sure that, we are really doing our best white glove service and trying to make it's hard. It's hard to be a foster parent, right? It's hard to go through the process and to be licensed. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of points of questions and a lot of work that we can do to support our families who are going through that. So that is sort of my role. I'm more like an HQ role right now, but I started actually at the same agency way back in 2008 as a boots on the ground recruiter for families. And we actually did a lot of church recruitment. So that was the focus of that program. But through that, being a recruiter and working with families, I did also a lot of adoption matching with families who were licensed and wanted to be matched with an older waiting child. So I would work a lot with social workers and their case managers to help match families, and that was such a joy too. So,
Wow. So, as an adoptee, did
Mhm.
you always think that you would work in this field of foster care and adoption?
It's interesting. I Social work for me has been a second career. So my
Okay.
first degree was actually in piano performance. Is that weird or what? And so I taught piano and played for many years. I still play. I don't teach anymore. But my dream was to really go into social work. And for whatever reason, I thought I wasn't qualified or couldn't be qualified because music was such a driver for me in my younger years. And then later in life, and I was by far the oldest person in my program. And so I was in there in my, 40s with uh, other students who were 22. But we
Wow.
went through and got my master's in social work and did some social work roles even before child welfare. Even though child welfare was probably my heart's desire, I was a medical social worker for several years. before getting into child welfare, which really was my heart. I think as an adoptee, adopted person, um, I don't know. I just always wanted to work with kids who maybe felt some of the same feelings I feel, and maybe the families that had gone through some of the things we had gone through. So it was always sort of my driver. So, and I cannot, and still to this day, abide with the idea of a child waiting for a family. So,
Yeah, I you have such a unique perspective, really. Like, I can
yeah,
imagine just how helpful that is for families to hear, you know, we can talk even on this podcast and tell people we've heard from adoptees, but we're not adoptees ourselves. And so we don't
right.
have that,
Mm,
perspective to be able to talk directly that way. So I think that's really unique.
yeah.
Um, so the agency that you work for, you do both foster
Mhm.
care, but you mentioned do these direct adoptions. Is it only for older children
Yeah,
or is
the
it also younger?
primarily they will do what we call foster care adoption. So kids who are in foster care, and obviously the goal is always to reunite them with their biological family. When that can't happen, then they will become available for adoption. And if family hasn't stepped forward, then we have to look for like a non-relative family. So if we don't have a relative, that has lined up, and ready to adopt, which is sort of second best, if so to speak, then we're looking for like a resource family or family from the community to stand forth. And ideally, even somebody that already knows the child or somebody from their community. Um, it's all about minimizing change. It's about minimizing adjustment and trauma because we know, moving to a new community, to a new school, that's all some level of trauma for kids. So anything we can do to minimize that. But yeah, we do have kids that we need to find families for. We do at our agency do some infant adoption. We used to do a lot of domestic infant adoption, but that has slowed down a lot. But there are still some branches that do that. That program is still alive and well, but not as large of a program. Before I actually came back to this agency, which I did in 2024, I worked for a small agency down here that did domestic infant adoption and some surrogacy. So I
Oh
kind of
wow.
my it was
Yeah.
definitely a different focus. So
Go ahead.
So, Sarah, I wanted to ask you about the Safe Families program because you and we had talked a little bit earlier as we were kind of setting this interview up and everything. But I think that this program is really
yeah.
unique and it's something I hadn't really heard about before. So, I would love for you to just share with us and our listeners and even just ways that people can get involved in something like this.
Okay. So, Safe Families for Children is actually a national program. And we are lucky to have some charters of that at our agency at several branches in several states. But what I love about Safe Families for Children is it ends up being broadly a prevention program, but it's a completely volunteer program that basically helps families that might be struggling where a child might end up in a system or in a foster care system. And again, avoiding that if we can avoid that. So essentially parents, usually it's a single parent, can contact the program if they are in need of help. Like they might be a single parent who is going to have surgery and they don't have anybody to watch their children, or maybe they're giving birth to another child and don't have family in town. And so we have volunteer families that step forward. They're trained, they are cleared with background check, and then they're called volunteer host families, and they are able to take that children for whatever period. They tend to be shorter host periods, usually, you know, from a few weeks, a week to even a couple months. We've had families who, for instance, are going to basic training or advanced infantry training or something like that, where again, nobody's here to watch their children and what are their choices. And so this family just is, or this program, excuse me, is really awesome. Just provides them with care, safe child care. The parents retain full parental rights at any time. They can say, you know what, I'm coming to pick up my child this afternoon. There's no sort of system involved other than this Safe Families program. Um, we've had families where a parent might be ordered to drug rehab by the court. And again, where are their children going to go? Typically, the child might go into the foster care system in their community. And this is just another alternative, again, to keep the relationship solid. The parents are typically visiting, calls, whatever can be during that hosting period. But yeah,
S-
that's a great
So
program.
that's really interesting because it's kind of
Mhm.
like respite care. But how does that
Yes.
okay, so for instance, with the family, like the scenario of someone has like court ordered rehab, how
Mhm.
does who gets to make the decision whether or not that child would go into foster care versus being able to be eligible for this program?
You know, primarily the parent would. It would be at a time before the child was placed in foster care. So this would be pre, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it could be that the parent, had a charge, or any number of scenarios. And so even if the court ordered a parent who had maybe had some DUIs and said, now you need to go to rehab. And typically a family's like, children will go stay with grandma and grandpa or aunt and uncle. But if that's not available, this program provides really a great alternative, because certainly children have come into foster care in those scenarios where the parent can't take care of them while they're maybe going into a treatment program. So
That's so cool.
yeah, they're doing it legally, really, through a power of attorney is the legal process that's going on. So, and that's something that the parent voluntarily drafts and the host family voluntarily, accepts. And so they can, bring the children to school, bring them to any, uh, doctor's appointments, or whatever is needed during that time. If something is needed, I think they tend to don't do a lot of that, but sometimes it's needed, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's so neat. And my husband and I, we've done respite
Yeah.
care before. And when I heard about
Oh,
this, I
great.
was like, oh, this is kind of a unique, kind of a different way of looking at respite care, and something that, even
Yes.
if you're in a position where maybe you can't accept foster children into your home, or like you want to help in some way, like this is a great program to get involved in.
Yes.
So that's just,
Yeah.
yeah, really, really neat.
It's wonderful. And typically the families for the Safe Family programs are typically coming are recruited really usually through a church setting. So a lot of times the church is wrapping around, and the Safe Family itself is wrapping around this biological parent. So, you know, a lot of times, even after the hosting process is done, the kids and the parent are invited to dinner, to holidays, and or the church might help them with diapers, or car
Yeah.
repair, or whatever. It's really a great program. Again, it's really a prevention program. And again, it's kind of avoiding that state involvement, um, which there's times we need state involvement for sure, but there's many times that we can avoid it. And Safe Families is one of those great sort of gap fillers.
Yeah, that's so good. When you think about
Mhm.
all of the different aspects of your job and even different jobs that you've had along the way, what's
Mhm.
something that, like, what's a highlight for you? Like maybe you could share a story, or, something like that, like
Goodness.
a really, like a big highlight for you.
Yeah. I think honestly, if I look back, the biggest highlight for me in recruiting has been a program we did, and it was actually a federal demonstration contract. So it was basically a big study, and we had a control group, in the study group, and so we were finding homes for teenagers, and in this case, it was Michigan's really longest waiting teenagers. So we had a study group of 20 of them between ages of 14 and 16. They were all in residential treatment centers. They were all available for adoption and had been for several years. But they still wanted to be adopted. They voluntarily wanted to be in this program and to find families, um, to say yes to them. And so then we also had our control group of 20 kids with the same demographics. They were 14 to 16 in residential treatment and have been available for adoption. So we had 10 boys, 10 girls. We were on both sides of the state. And so what we did with those youth is they had what we call been there, done that recruiters. So they were each assigned a special recruiter, and their been there, done that recruiter had been somebody who had either aged out of foster care themselves or been adopted out of foster care. And it was usually a young adult that had some success, been in college, whatever, were wanted to be. um, wanted to help somebody like them. And so they had to been there, done that. Recruiter. We assigned each of them a support family. So from the community, so somebody to go to their band concerts or their basketball games and be there for them, visit, take them bowling, take them out of residential into the community for visits because these kids don't get that. They're kind of
Yeah.
in the residential. They don't get to go somewhere for Christmas or their birthday. So their host family filled that gap. And then we provided trauma informed care for any family that would want to come forward to adopt them or take placement. So, of our 20 kids, who were again, these are longer waiting kids, we were able to place 17 of them either into
Wow.
adoptive families or community families or some of them, their host family. It wasn't all adoption. Some took
Mhm.
guardianships or independent living, but they all came out with support. And that that program just filled my heart to hear the kids. We would have focus sessions and to hear their quotes. Like, I just feel like I have hope again. Like, I feel like time is moving again for me, like I matter. And to hear their reactions and to see like hope come into their lives again, hands down, my favorite memory, probably one of my most powerful memory. And I would resurrect that program today, tomorrow. Anybody wants to do it, call me. It was great.
That
So,
is really cool. That
mhm.
kind of reminds me, so I worked in residential before I was a
Okay, yes.
foster parent,
Okay.
and which is what led us to becoming
Oh,
foster parents
wow.
later,
Okay.
and I can totally see how, like, the kids that had these personal relationships, regardless if they were adopted or not, they
Mhm.
did so much better in residential because it is very, I mean, you're so institutionalized. Like,
Yeah,
I clock in, I clock out, there's your morning shift people, your evening shift people. Like, it's not like you can try to form a bond, but at the end of the day, like, it's our job to take care of you.
right.
And
Right.
having someone who's like, "No, I want to be here. Like, I am volunteering my
Mhm.
time." And we had interviewed, a director for, CASA, and it kind of reminds me of that. The CASA workers kind of took on the role that sounds really
Yes.
similar, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Exactly. I think there's a quote running out there that all any child needs to succeed is one caring adult
Oh,
around them.
yeah.
And it is so true. And I've worked in residential settings before as well. And it's hard. It's hard. I don't know that I couldn't go back to it. I'll be really honest. Because my heart just goes out to kids
Well,
who
but
are state
somehow
wards.
you had this job, and then you've also adopted
Yeah.
13 children.
Yeah.
So, can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that? Because I can't imagine that that's easy.
No, it certainly wasn't, and most of them now, are adults, young to mid-adulthood. I still have a 14-year-old at home that I like to say I'm still legally responsible for. Um, he's the joy of our life, but he's a tag along by far. But yeah, so this I'll just kind of give the Reader's Digest story. So my first husband, Doug, and I adopted 6 children, through from infertility. Our first daughter came from South Korea in 1989, and so she's now be 36. And so, and then
Wait, is she
after
turning
that,
37? I'm also born in '89.
yes, I guess she is, but she's still 36.
No, I'm
So,
just kidding.
oh
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
giving
yeah.
you a hard time. I
So,
was like,
and
"Oh,
she's
that's
a
my age."
Yeah, and she made me a grandma for the first time. So,
Oh,
but
congrats.
yeah, we have, and then we adopted then at the time we were doing intercountry, that country closed. So by a series of just, calling different agencies, we ended up adopting domestically and transracially. I like to say we had a couple surprise adoptions in there, where the agency called us and said, "Hey, would you and Doug consider we have a waiting 6-month-old?" I'm like, "Oh," so some of these things, sometimes I'm afraid people are going to look at me like I'm one of those collector parents, like, I'm just out to get all the, I promise I'm not. It does look like it, but I'm not. So, and then our last son we adopted actually out of foster care, because that was always my desire. Again, that waiting child, just, ooh, that was hard for me as an adopted person to live with that. So we adopted our last son as a 5-year-old out of foster care. So we had these 6 kids merrily along, going through all the things, behaviors and the highs and lows that we go through as adoptive families. And then my husband was very tragically killed in a car accident in 2003. And so I then found myself a suddenly single um, mom of 6 kids, none of whom looked like me. Wonderful kids, wonderful family. And that is actually the time that I went back into social work, that I decided, I
Mm.
really can't support these children on $3,000 a year as a piano teacher. So I need like a real job. And
Wow.
so went to school to be a social worker, which again was truly my passion as well. So yeah, then a few years later, you know, Cupid struck and I met a very wonderful man. He was a single dad of 6 children. And so married him in 2007. It's our anniversary actually next week.
Oh,
And
congrats.
yeah, and it's been 19 years. So it's crazy that that has gone so fast. And so I ended up adopting his 6 children. So then well, we have 12. And then a few years later, doing my own recruitment work, we I would see waiting children, and one of those waiting children is now our 14-year-old Jace, who's playing baseball, and so he was a waiting child in California, and we were shaking in our boots because we were old parents, but we're still alive, we're still kicking, we're
I
still
mean,
going
you
there,
made
and
you made it
yeah,
through combining 2 families of 6, so I feel
yes,
like you could handle anything.
yeah, yeah. There were a lot of dynamics, but honestly,
Yeah.
they're all such great kids. Honestly, they might tell you a different story, but from my bleacher, it really went as well as it could. And we were all together just a few weeks ago for one of my sons getting married, and almost everybody came down, and it was
Wow.
Wow.
great. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, you're definitely super parents for just walking through all of this. I'm sure
Mm,
there were so
yeah.
many times along the way that there were behaviors and emotions and all the things that, just
Mm.
had
Oh,
you
yes.
really
Oh,
stuck
yes.
and like, okay, I even do this
Oh, yeah.
professionally, but I'm having a hard time with figuring this
Oh,
out. So, what are some of the things that got you through? Like, you don't have to share specifics about specific kids, but stories are
sure.
always
Absolutely.
good.
Getting through is sometimes just getting through, right? It's faith, and it's very imperfect what it looks like. Sometimes I would go to trainings, we definitely tried to take advantage of any helps, any therapeutic helps, any helps, because for sure at least my 6 were culturally different from most of the family. So we tried to really like my girls did Korean dance, children's dance lessons, and we did all the cultural camps and all that. And my kids sometimes they nag me about it. Like, you made us go to culture camp, and I get these. Yes, I guess I did. Um, and so we tried, but there were certainly, incidences that we faced being a transracial family. That a lot of times when I'm training um, adoptive families or pre-adoptive families, and they're interested in adopting transracially, I say, really, it is something you have to consider almost as a special need. And I don't on really on the same level as if a child had a cognitive disability or a medical disability or physical or learning, whatever it is, you have to pay attention to it. You can't just pretend this child is, if you're a Caucasian family, that they're the same as you, or if you happen to be a family of color that a Caucasian child is just like you. Like there definitely are cultural considerations in all the ways and all the reasons. And I would usually say things like, my children wear their adoption like a flag, like, "Hello, I'm adopted," and it's
Yeah.
it's it's it becomes a thing for them and a thing that they have to adjust to, and it becomes a point of struggle at times for them, and you have to parents need to be aware of that. I had to be aware of that. My kids will still tell me about things they went through that they didn't tell me as a young child, and I'll still sometimes hear stories, and I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, why didn't you tell me?" So I tried to be so open. We would read all the books, but you know what? Sometimes you don't hear about the challenges, but yeah, we definitely went
That's
through it all.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
yeah, I there's so many complexities. I'm sure we could
Mhm.
talk to you for hours about
Yeah.
all the lessons you've learned and the wisdom. I mean, I wanna know.
Yes.
I am also, a mom of we are a transracial
Yeah.
family, and, it is it is uniquely challenging. I think it
Mhm.
hits as a like from a mom perspective, it hits like a different type of vulnerability.
Yes.
Oh, I not only am I adoptive mom,
Yeah.
that, I know, like, there is a point where like, there's a divide here. I can
Yeah.
care for you, but, like, I am not your biological mom, and I never will
Yes.
be. But
Yes.
now we have this other layer of, but also, I don't know what it's like to be
Yeah.
you in your skin,
Hmm.
and that's so hard to have to just really lay that down and say, "I don't know what's
Hmm.
best here." Um, can you
Yeah.
tell us, like, 1 or 2 things that you've learned that helped you, from your perspective? How did you kinda work through those kinda insecurities?
Um, I can remember rocking my kids when they would be little and then just saying, I wish I was Asian. I wish I was African American. I wish I could be that for you so that you didn't have to have that difference and to
Mhm.
feel like you were even more different because of this additional difference. I feel like I'm saying the word difference a lot, sorry. But but it was. Um and so I think again, to me, and I don't know if I see them occasionally, but honestly, belonging to groups of other families that look like yours, where your family is the norm. And that can look, but just
Hmm.
being around with other transracial families, whether they're adoptive or not, being, really, at one point I moved my family from the suburbs, which was pretty homogenous, to very core city, very diverse neighborhood, church, schools, everything. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but in my family's case, it was the right thing to do at that time. Um, but I think just exposing your child and yourself. I mean, my goodness, I had to go out and very intentionally make friends with people of other cultures and invite them to my home and being invited to their homes. And those are some of my sweetest memories, going to Kwanzaa celebrations at people's homes and Chuseok, the Korean New Year at a family who might be Korean at their home and dinners and just exposure that they gave
Hmm.
my children. I'm forever thankful to those families who walked alongside of us. But it was awkward. Sometimes I had to be really vulnerable and be like, will you be our friend? Will you be my child's mentor? Will you be, and ask on behalf and daring to do that. And most
Yeah,
people were wonderful and happy to. So,
that's good advice, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I know we've talked about even like specific things of like you need to seek out help in like how what do I do with her hair or how do I care for her skin or
yes.
just those different things and it's really humbling as a mom cuz there's a lot of you
Yeah.
that feels like well I should know how to do this. I'm their mom.
Yeah.
I should be able to
Right.
figure it out. But you're different like you
Mhm.
said and it's not something to
Mhm.
be ashamed of. It's just something to acknowledge
Right.
and to work through. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. So your
Mhm.
kids, you have 13 kids, you have one at home. Are
Mhm.
they all
Yeah.
across the country? Are they kind of close to you? Like, what does weekly or,
No.
regular life even really look like now?
It's tricky because a lot of them are I have a son in Texas, I have a daughter in DC, I have a son in Michigan, and
Oh,
other than
man.
that, we're kind of in Florida, which is they're
Okay.
kind of migrating here, it seems like slowly, but some I know will never come here. So it's hard. I have dreams of someday getting an RV and making the grandma route, especially as grandchildren are coming. But weirdly, with all my kids, I have just 3 grandchildren. So
Oh,
So
that's
far.
wow.
yeah,
So
maybe so
far.
far. I think they're all like, "We've had so many kids, we don't we just really don't want kids."
They all
But
care
no,
for
I'd
each
have my
other.
first grandchild down here. Yeah, they're like, we're over babies. We're over it." So, no, they're great. My kids are great, and the grandchildren just are even better. But yeah, it is challenging to stay in touch with everybody, and sometimes I'll look and like, how do I keep track of all these birthdays? And now that some of them are getting married, and some of them have stepchildren already, and I'm like, this is really quickly blowing out of control, guys. So, but it's still good. It's all good. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Very cool.
So, when we talk about,
Hmm.
back to kinda like that professional side of, the
Hmm.
the families that you're working with,
Yeah.
as an adoptee, are you saying things to them, to these prospective parents, like right away? Or is there something that kind of like yeah, like
Yeah.
how are you bringing that to the table?
I will usually share that if I'm working with a potential family, I will usually share that quite readily. And especially when I was working like an infant adoption with brand new families, for some of this is their first child, that would I can tell that was sort of calming for them. And even when I was doing more older child, like adoption matching, people would feel like, okay, you seem like you're sort of okay, only a little bit crazy. But no, because there's so many media stereotypes, right? That families
Right.
fight. And especially when you're considering adopting an older child and your neighbors are like, why would you want, and you're fighting these crazy stereotypes, most of which are very untrue. And so I could tell that would kind of be like, okay. And I was able to tell, especially when I worked in infant adoption, I would be able to tell birth moms how I felt, even points of struggle and but points where it was okay. And I was an adoptee who did connect with my biological family. So I have this big, bodacious family that I love to bits. And I'm the oldest of 10 full siblings, if you can believe. And
Wow.
so it's just, yeah, I have a crazy large family. And so, yeah, it's like, dealing with that and even dealing with people who are, considering searching and sometimes they'll want me to talk to their teens. So I feel like I've been everything but a birth mom. Somehow I'm skirting around these different parts of the system. But I'm very much, even though I have a big adoptive family, I am very pro keeping, a child in their family of origin. If at all, if it can happen, please, there's a lot of times that interventions I think could have kept kids in their original family.
Hmm.
And I'm all for that. And um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, you really you have such a unique perspective because you've touched literally every part of this, like you said, other than being a birth mom. And at the same time, you
Yeah.
can speak to a birth mom in a way that a lot of people can't because
Yeah.
you can advocate for her in a way that other people can't,
Hmm.
which I think is just
Hmm.
yeah, that's really unique and really, really
Yeah.
interesting. I love that. I think
Hmm.
you've been able
Uh,
to impact a lot of lives through the work that you've done.
yeah.
So, thank you for that. It's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really, really good. I wonder, as you think about like all the different people that you have interacted with, like if there was one group that you had to hone in on and you could like only work with that one group, whether it's, part of the triad like we've talked about or an age group or whatever that might
Uh-huh.
be, what would that one group be that you would choose?
It would be teens getting set to age out of foster care.
Wow.
Kids like that older teens,
Mhm.
15, 16, 17-year-olds.
So, what would you say to parents, prospective parents that are interested in teens,
Yeah.
but they're terrified of the behaviors? Because,
Right.
yeah, we all know that is, a reality for
Of course
many
it is.
families. So, how would you counsel them through that fear?
Whew, that's a tough one because there are sometimes, and a lot of times we kind of know we've been working with a child and we know what they are. And I believe there is a family for every child. You know, I I just have to share. One time I was working with a pre-adoptive dad, and he had already adopted out of foster care several kids. And he was describing his kids to me, and he's like, I've got this one, they're a straight age student. I've got this one, they're an athlete. Da, da, da." He said, and I have this kid that all he does is lay on the couch and play video games. He said, but I'm so proud of him too. You know, I just, and I mean, it
Oh.
was just like, I, it's like he found a way to reframe and just to show his heart. And I think, everybody matters. And when we have behaviors, they're behaviors. They are behaviors. They are not who the child is.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes behaviors, and I'm honest and open enough that, and because it's happened in my own life, sometimes we can't sustain those behaviors in our home. Sometimes they need to be have a higher level of care somewhere. But and my kids that have gone through that too, I love them too. I just as important to me as the ones that graduate
Yeah.
from college. Like the love is the same. And so I think if parents are flexible, if they're willing to seek help, if they're willing to stay with a child and realize that sometimes the relationship is going to be closer, sometimes there might be estrangement, but it's being that family, it's being that steady person who, like that man, I was just like, I love even my kid that doesn't leave the couch, doesn't do anything, basically terrible grades. Love him too. You know,
He's
if
great.
you can have, yeah, I think of that child and knowing he is the biggest cheerleader. His father is his biggest cheerleader. And I think if we can provide that, we can work through almost anything. So
That's
that would be
so
my
good.
it's not really place.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
really good. I mean, we've talked a lot about behaviors on our podcast and in different episodes, and even my 4 and 1-year-old's behaviors, I need to reframe my way of
Yes.
thinking about them some days. And
Yes. Yes.
so,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a trend that continues from teeny tiny babies all the way through the
There.
teenage and adult years, I'm sure.
Yep. Yep. It's like there's really is no easy part of parenting. I don't. If it is, somebody tell me what it is because I missed that part. But it's all good, and you do get through it.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's the
So.
call of our lives. I mean, it really is like it's our mission and it's what we're
Hmm.
meant to do.
Yeah. I will say that a lot of times I'll have parents that want to come and they want to adopt a toddler, and I'm like, toddler adoption is like the hardest. Give me the teenagers all day. Toddlers, they're tiny,
I
but they're little terrorists. So,
Yeah.
Yep, we
Yeah.
can
The toddlers
attest.
in residential were a little tricky.
yes, definitely.
Yeah,
They're
Yeah.
so cute. It's a good thing they're so cute because
I know. There's a
I
reason they're
know.
so cute.
That's
mhm,
right. Yeah, and so
absolutely.
much is changing in their little minds and in their bodies and everything that's going. I
Yep.
mean, it's just all happening at the
And
same time.
they're just reacting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, as you've been talking about like the teenagers
Hmm.
and as like you've taken on so much, professionally and personally,
Yeah.
it really is making me think that I think sometimes as parents, we just have this like idea that is so strong that our family must look this way, that motherhood must look this way. And when we especially as as adoptive parents, when we're like fighting against the grain, like, you know, you will never be this mom. Like, you will never be their biological mom. You will never be, if you're transracial, you'll never be the same race as
Hmm.
them.
Yeah.
The teen, like, you'll never be able to replace, all of this
Yes. Yeah.
past, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve to still have someone there for them to call mom or dad,
Hmm.
and I think that idea that like we're holding on to that piece of control so tightly. And I think that might be what prevents a lot of, especially teenage adoptions. Do you find that like you like after my second, third, seventh child, then I
Yeah.
really let go? Like, was there a time when you kind of felt this, like, yeah, like this release, or maybe you always have felt that way? I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's interesting. No, I definitely, when my kids were younger, I never was like totally type A. I just couldn't be. There were too many of them. But but I was like, we had our upstairs toys and our downstairs toys. I mean, there were ways in the house. I'm like, how stupid was that? Like, it doesn't matter. And as I've gotten older, I've, that's one of the gifts of growing older, gals. I know I'm kind of that next generation, but the older you get, the better it gets because you just don't care as much. And so you do become more naturally relaxed. You do realize, I mean, after my husband passed away, I missed a parent teacher conference. And before, if that would have happened, I probably would have cried in bed. Oh, I'm a terrible mother. And it was like, my gosh, the world is still rotating on its axis. Like, it's okay. I can actually call the teachers for an update and it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you learn that things are okay. Most, the old don't smut the small things are all small things is kind of true. And so, I mean, that doesn't mean there weren't times and still aren't times that I might get upset or this or that, but I tend to recover pretty quickly. And that may be a trauma response. I don't know. But tend to just kind of keep stepping and it's okay. Like it is okay. And And when you can start to learn to kind of keep that general philosophy, yep, my children, they're throwing a screamer in the middle of the grocery store or whatever, like, it's okay. Instead of letting the anxiety rile up like it does as a mother, like, it's okay. And learning to just kind of what I call gray rock parent, that helps a lot. Where you just like, oh, it's quite a screamer you're throwing there. I'll just stay here and wait for it to be done. When you can start to learn some of those techniques and feel good about doing them, I think life just becomes so much more happy.
Can we just, like, move
Mhm.
you into, like, all of our homes?
I
Like, I need this. I need
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what pill did you take? I
Yeah.
want that one.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
No,
Seriously.
I mean, yeah, like,
Yeah.
I'm hearing you, and, I think we often, like, underestimate the wisdom of the older generation because you're right, like,
Mhm.
and it does like, it
Yeah.
inspires me. I'm like, "Okay, oh my gosh, like, I did not need to
Yeah.
freak out about that earlier today." Like,
Yes. But we do. And this is where I feel I don't want to say sorry for your generation, but I think it's harder. You kind of are living in that Pinterest, TikTok world of everything has to look perfect and be curated and bespoke. And it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
But there's so much cultural pressure of how families must look, and families that have, like I said, curated their whole adoption journeys or their whole parenting journeys or whatever it is. And it just puts a lot of pressure. And the truth is families look like all different kind of things. But
Yeah.
if you can keep it safe, if you can keep it happy, those are the goals.
So
So,
good. I could keep
yeah.
listening to you just share wisdom with
Mm,
us. It's
I
been so
know.
good.
uh,
Yeah, so good.
Well, you guys, I think we are going to wrap up today, even though I know Abby and I could talk to Sarah for hours and hours. But before we go, can you maybe just share one thing that you wish you knew back in the beginning when you were looking to adopt your first? What's something that, yeah, you wish someone would have said to you?
hmm. I wish somebody would have. Hmm, that's such a hard question. I think I just wish somebody would have told me, kind of echoing what I just kind of talked about. Like, it's okay. We used to bring the kids out to eat at this sweet little pancake restaurant in my town. They had the best pancakes. And there was always a little sign by the cash register. And it said, everything is going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And it's kind of like that. Like, it will be. It's like, don't sweat. It's really going to be okay. And leave that tension behind. Most of it is so unnecessary.
Yeah, it's
That's,
so
I guess,
good.
the main thing. Yep.
And that applies to motherhood, it applies to adoption processes and foster care
Yes.
placements and all the different things. I mean,
Mhm.
it really, yeah, it
Mhm.
just hang in
Yep.
there. Like that's what I
Just hang in
hear.
there. It's
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I
Yeah.
hear.
It's not
Just
the end.
yeah, it's
We're
not the
all good.
end.
We're all sitting
Yeah.
here. We're good. We're all 3 women sitting here. We're all good,
Yeah,
We're all good. Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So
Um,
Yep.
good.
yeah. No, yeah, so good. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us
Absolutely.
today and just imparting your wisdom. I'm going to like go back and listen to this episode again
Oh,
myself.
uh,
And you guys, listeners out there, if anything that we have said or Sarah has said has made you laugh, cry, or feel seen, please share this episode with a friend and we will be back again next week. So see you guys later. Thanks again, Sarah.
thanks so much.